Hello, internet friends. My name is Catherine, and I'm the human behind Creation Miss Couture. And today is the last episode for the blue portion of our Color Wheel Monday, the series in which we go through color theory one color at a time. So we started with the red from the triangle of the primary colors. We've completed red, and today we're completing the blue portion. And after that, we're going to be working on the yellow portion of the primary color triangle. And after we've done the primary color triangle, we're going to shift and work on the secondary color triangle from the color wheel. So this is very exciting. So without further ado, let's get into this. Hello, it's our last day to work the color Caribbean Blue for our Color Wheel Monday, the series in which I go through color theory one color at a time. So we're working with Caribbean Blue for the blue portion of the color wheel. So what we've done so far is we've completed the red portion. Now we're going to be completing the blue, and after that we're going to be jumping into the yellow. So that way we're working the primary colors triangle first, and once we're done the primary colors, we're going to jump into our secondary colors with the orange, violet, and green, and we'll be working that triangle after we've completed the triangle of the primary colors. So without further ado, we're going to be adding ultra electric violet to the Caribbean Blue, because when we're going to be working electric violet in our color wheel, we're going to be comparing Caribbean Blue and the ultra electric violet. So what we're going to do first is going to do our stock solution. We're working with 1% stock solutions. So what is 1% stock solution? It is 1 gram of dry powder for our dye with 100 milliliter of water. So you can use a water. I use boiling water, but you don't have to use boiling, but it has to be enough to dissolve all the particles. And it is very important that you protect your lungs, so please wear a ventilator. Doesn't have to be this specific brand, doesn't have to be this specific one, but protect your lungs at all costs, please, because we only have one pair of lungs in our lives. Okay, so we're adding this. So we're going to ensure that our scale is at 0, 0, 0. And we're going to be doing our 1% stock solution. So we need 1 gram of dye. No, I have too much now. Almost. There we go. I'm just going to close this. We're going to be adding a little bit of water. And we want to make sure that everything is dissolved. There we go. Let's clean the spoon. Now we make sure that we zero out the scale, and we're repeating this step by adding 1 gram. Amazing, right on it. Okay, we're the line. Now that there's no powder form, I can remove my ventilator. So it's only when it's in dry powder form that it is dangerous. This is why even when you're speckling, don't hold your breath and just use your ventilators, because we truly only have one pair of lungs. Okay, so we've made our stock solutions. Now what we're going to do is grab our mason jars with tap water in it. Okay, so there's roughly 300 milliliters of tap water in each of the mason jars. So it is kind of room temperature, more on the colder side because my tap water is slightly cold. There is no citric acid as of right now in those mason jars because I want the dye to take slower to strike the yarn. So this is why there's no citric acid as of right now. So we want to have the Caribbean Blue as the main character in here. So we're going to be adding 1% depth of shades in each of the mason jars of the Caribbean Blue. White, and are we going to, how are we going to do that? Is by adding 10 milliliters of our 1% stock solution in each of those mason jars. Why 10 milliliters? Because we have 10-gram mini skeins of fingering stroll by Knitpick. I will have an affiliated link in the description box below if you're interested in purchasing any of those mini skeins, which are very useful. So we're going to be adding the 10 milliliters in each of those. And after that, we're going to be adding in the electric violet. The electric violet will go from 0.05% depth of shade up to 1% depth of shade because I want to be able to see the full hue and the full spectrum, and this is the best way to do it. Of course, we could push it further and go Zoe, what the hell? No. Hey. Okay, we could push further and go up to a 2% stock solution and 2% depth of shade, but we're going to work in the lighter shade for now. Because honestly, sometimes you don't need to go up to a 2% depth of shades. So it's just, you can do those experiments at home if you want. Okay, so we're going to be doing the 10 milliliters now. Okay, and now we're going to be adding our electric violet into the mix. We're using this tiny pipette. What is a pipette in English? Thing. Because we are going to, because we're adding 0.5 milliliters of ultraviolet here, 1 milliliters here, 2.5 here. Now I'm going to be switching to my 10 milliliter syringe. So we need 5. Damn, I'm right on it. 5 milliliters. $7.5, and we're going to need 10 milliliters now. Okay, and I've made a mess as per usual. I think that if you've been following along for a little while, you understand that unfortunately this is something I do quite often, is making messes. So let's just, and let me know in the comment box below what are your thoughts on what's going to happen with the electric violet, because in electric violet we know that we have blue pigment and we most likely have either a pink or a red pigment to create the purple violet color. So what do you think we're going to get at the end of this? Is it going to be colors that are similar to when we added the fire engine red, or do you think it's going to be different, closer to a violet than what we had with the fire engine red? So we're going to be adding the yarns now. Looks pretty similar to me to our Caribbean Blue. but we could be wrong. Oh, I feel like this one's going to be hard to gauge which one is what, especially for the paler colors. But there are some colors that need the acid to actually like look what it's supposed to look like. And there are some colors that need the heat to be properly activated, the heat and the citric acid. So I don't know. We'll see. And this is why we do those experiments, right? So we can understand how colors interact with each other. And maybe we were just going to have a much deeper blue. That's very possible that's what's going to happen. So far, it looks just like a deeper blue, like almost a midnight blue. It's a very pretty color. It's very pretty. I like it. Okay, so now that we have those in the jar, we're going to be putting them in the double boiler, so that way we can cook the yarn, basically. And after that, okay, so we're going to do that, and we'll be back. So let's add the jars. And I always put the jars in the same order, so it's just easier for me mentally. You need to help yourself, right? Okay, so now it's in there. We're going to be adding the water. Okay, let's turn on the heat because we know it's going to take longer for the water to get the right temperature. So reminder, you need to reach a temperature of between 85 to 95 Celsius in the jars for the color to properly set in your yarn. We still don't have any citric acid in the water as of right now because we want the colors to strike slower. Um, because sometimes what happens when you incorporate your citric acid too early in the process is that you will have a patchy color on the yarn. It's not going to be even on the coverage wise, and it's going to be annoying. So if it's a look that you're going for, go for it. However, if you want an even coverage of your tonal color, I would absolutely wait a little bit before adding any citric acid. And I have some water on the so that's okay. That's okay. Okay, so we're going to be waiting at least 15 minutes before adding the citric acid in here. So I will see you in 15. Okay, so it's been a little longer than 15 minutes because I started cleaning up the studio and I was due to do a good cleanup. And so now we're going to be adding the citric acid now that it's been a good 15 minutes. Oh, where is my small... Okay, well, whatever. So I can't find my smaller spoon, but that's okay. I'll survive. Let's add... Okay, so when it comes to citric acid, the rule of thumb is 1 tablespoon per pound, so 454 grams of either fiber or of yarn. So it means that for 10 gram, you really don't need that much. You just need enough to activate. So I usually like a quarter of a teaspoon, and even that, it might even be a stretch. So blue is usually a color that strikes slower, so I shouldn't be worried with any glazing or anything. So I'm not worried about that. So it's not quite at the 85 to 95 Celsius over here, so we're going to wait until it reaches that point, and once it's reached between 85 to 95 Celsius, you let it cook for at least half an hour. Some blues take up to 45 minutes to properly strike, but once you've reached the correct temperature and you just need to let it cook, after that, what we're going to do is turn off the heat, let it cool completely before washing it, um, and let it dry overnight. So I will probably see you in about, well, we're almost at the 85 Celsius from what I can see, because I can see a little bit of smoke coming from the water. So I will probably see you in 45 minutes. Okay, see you. Okay, so this is looking good. All right. We should be able to just get the rest absorbed with the residual heat. So we're going to let this cool completely. I'll wash it later today, and we shall see the final result tomorrow. Okay, and let's get to wash this yarn. So we already know that we will most likely have bleeding. There was not a whole lot of color in the mason jars, which of course I will show you in about a minute. So I didn't have a whole lot of color in there, so I'm not expecting to have too much bleeding if there is any at all. But we all know that Carribean Blue is the main character every time it's in the recipe, so I'm not holding my breath for a clear path. But sometimes we are surprised and we don't have to do too much work. Why we clean up the yarn after dyeing it, it's just to make sure that we remove all excess dye from the yarn. I always use an unscented eucalyptus soap, and this is a no rinse one, so I don't have to rinse it off because it will just remove itself. After we've done that, we will be making sure to put it in the spin dryer to remove all excess water, and then we're going to be leaving it to dry overnight. One of the great thing about mini skeins is that they dry rather quickly, so tomorrow they will be completely dry and we will be able to see the final result in a second with the magic of editing. And you can see here there's barely any hint of color, so that's fantastic. And here's the final result for adding the electric violet to our Caribbean Blue. As you can see, there's not a whole lot of difference, especially compared to our Caribbean Blue. So this was just an interesting... Oh, hello, Zoe. She's the main character, I know. So it's just an interesting exercise to do about potency in this case, and also like how adding adjacent colors will just change the hue in this case for the final blue that we obtain, because it's a very beautiful blue. We're going from a shade that is very bright to something that is a little bit more on the moodier, richer jewel tone. So this is something that we can keep in mind when it comes down to creating recipes, or if you're... Okay, Zoe, can you move your... Can you move? Wished. There we go. So this is just something to keep in mind when we're working with colors. So, Zoe, stop it. So it was just an interesting take on the blue. And so this was the last of our blue. Next week, we're going to be heading headfirst into yellow. So we're almost done the primary color triangle, which I'm very excited about. And after our primary colors, we're going to be working our secondary colors. So if you've liked the video, please consider sharing, liking, and subscribing. And I'll see you in the next one very soon. Bye!